Alright, for this video I'm going to be talking about my past struggles with job hunting. How I came up with the idea for this video was I got to thinking a lot about my recent financial struggles as well as financial struggles that I've had in the past. And I got to thinking about issues that I had in the past with trying to get jobs. And so I wanted to talk about that to be able to provide some information about difficulties I've had with getting jobs in the past and how that information might be useful for anybody that's having difficulties trying to get jobs. And so my first job I actually got when I was 19, and that was a full-time job. I worked a third shift. For the most part, my schedule was the same. And I think had gotten that job mainly because, one, it was a place that seemed to hire just about anybody, and two, I had someone that I knew, even though I didn't really know them that well. I had somebody that I knew that recommended me, and also it was my first job, so I guess with it being a place that was willing to hire just about anybody, they didn't really care that much in a negative way about it being my first job. They probably thought that with it being my first job that they could maybe try to get me to remain loyal by distorting my view of the way things at jobs usually are. But in reality, it did the opposite, because once I figured out what they were doing, it not only made me angry, but it also made me not really wanting to have used as much energy as I was using and having to go through as much as I was having to go through. It made me not want to do all that for them, because I didn't feel like they really cared about me or like they were really doing things that I needed them to do. I don't think they really did a great job at catering to my well-being as one of their workers. But anyways, I had had other attempts before that one at trying to get jobs. I had noticed that I didn't do so well with interviews and with filling out applications. I overthought, or I did a lot of overthinking about what certain things meant on the applications, and I guess I just didn't fill out a lot of applications correctly. Also, I had a lack of social skills, and I was very socially awkward, and so I think that made things not go so well for me at interviews, especially because I was very nervous during those interviews, and I had lots of anxiety related to trying to get jobs. I had multiple failed attempts, not necessarily a multitude of failed attempts, but I did have multiple failed attempts at trying to get jobs before I actually got my first job. And then after about 8 months of working my first job, after I had finally decided to quit it because it was too much for me to handle, I didn't get another job until about a year later. And that job that I had gotten about a year later after that is the job that I still have today, which I've had for about a year now. And so I had multiple failed attempts at getting a job in between my first and second job. I had more issues with interview processes and with application processes. Actually, most of the time I didn't even get to do an interview. I didn't even get that far. And from my experience, if I tried to figure out why I didn't get hired, that usually that didn't work out well. That usually the whatever company it was that I had tried to apply for didn't even they seemed to be annoyed with me for contacting them asking about why I didn't get hired or whatever. So I learned not to do that, despite some people telling me that they recommended doing something like that. But I just wanted to be cautious, so I avoided trying to ask employers why they didn't hire me. But anyways, I had a lack of work experience. I'm a young person, so there's that. It was my lack of social skills, of course. I had lack of availability due to me not being able to work full-time anymore. As a result of me having a lot of issues with my health, I'm not really able to work full-time. And so that makes me have a lack of availability. I have a lack of transportation. I'm not able to drive a vehicle, so I have to walk to work. That narrows down my options a lot. And so overall, the whatever places that I had been trying to get hired at those points in time, I didn't seem to have a lot of what they were looking for. I didn't seem to have the kind of flexibility as a worker that they were looking for. And so I learned that with me being a young person without much work experience, without having much awareness of certain special skills that I might be able to put on my applications, without me having much to go off of because of me being so young and not having much experience, I've learned that I have had to deal with either one, if I need a job, try to get hired at a place that'll hire just about anybody, which in my experience, those jobs tend to not be the most fun jobs. They tend to be very stressful, and they tend to make me feel like my employers don't care much about my well-being. And I've learned that if I want to have a chance at getting a job that is not one of those kinds of jobs without having much experience in the form of official jobs, I've learned that there are other ways to get experience, such as volunteer work. I've also learned that there's educational experience. Even if you've never went to college, certain jobs may be more likely to hire you if you explain some things about how well you did in high school. And also, besides those things that I mentioned, being able to communicate effectively indicates that you may have a lot of experience besides what is there on your resume. And so I learned that these things were helpful for me getting the jobs that I've gotten so far, even though I haven't gotten that many jobs throughout my life. But unfortunately, with me not getting my first job till I was 19 years old, and the fact that not long after I had gotten my first job, the pandemic of 2020, actually, no. It was before I had gotten my first job, actually. Yeah, it was before I had gotten my first job that the pandemic of 2020 happened. So yeah, when I had gotten my first job, it was during a hard time because of the pandemic, and that made it even harder for me to get a job. But luckily I had things line up right to where I was able to get a job, so that I was able to save some money so that I would be able to survive and help out my mother during that period of time in between my first and second job. I'm glad I had been able to save up that money from my first job so that I was able to make it long enough to where I could get a second job. And so many things just didn't line up well for me with that. And I'm sure a lot of other people have been having to deal with this kind of stuff as a result of the pandemic, and even before the pandemic. And I just feel really bad that so many people have to go through this. It's like so many people do want to work, despite how many employers say that nobody wants to work, we can't hire anybody. Well, I've learned that there's a lot of people that they do want to work. And these same employers aren't hiring them because these people don't meet the employer's expectations or requirements or whatever. And then these employers complain about, oh, we can't get nobody. Well, maybe expand your options as far as who you're willing to hire, and then maybe you'll get more workers. And maybe even be able to get them to stay longer. Maybe provide them with their needs, within reason, of course, and maybe they'll be more willing to stay for longer. And I just felt like I was being judged a lot during interview processes, and I feel like I was getting judged like as if I was the cover of a book, and they were just judging me without even taking the time to know me, because this world, how it goes now with things involving the economy and a lot of social things, this world tends to take things super fast, and so they don't take the time to get to know people like they used to, and so they judge people without getting to know them, and that closes off a lot of opportunities for people like me, because I want to be able to have more opportunities, and my opportunities get closed off because of me being judged by people. And I wish people would get to take a little bit more time to know me first. And I just feel like a lot of the stuff with advertisements for jobs about flexibility, I think that's often one-sided, and that they're not as flexibility as they make it seem like they are, and they expect the workers to be very flexible for them, but not the other way around, and that's annoyed me. But anyways, I hope these things that I've said might have done some good, and yeah, I actually got to go to work soon, so I got to wrap this video up soon. But that's it for this video. Peace.